of Seven Leaders Summit in Japan is set to begin tomorrow, and the two countries that will dominate the discourse are not even part of this gathering. They're China and Russia. The United States President Joe Biden is set to participate at this particular summit over the weekend in Hiroshima. Biden called the summit the Geopolitical Seven, as the focus is expected to be on two countries that aren't invited, like I mentioned. When it comes to China, members are struggling with how to warn against the threat to global supply chains and economic security without alienating a key trading partner. As far as Russia is concerned, the leaders are expected to tighten sanctions, and the focus is going to be on energy and exports, aiding Moscow's war against Ukraine. Several leaders of the world's richest democracies would like to tackle this issue of rising tensions in Asia. The G7 leaders are increasingly concerned about Beijing's growing assertiveness, the expansionist attitude that Beijing has. They fear that China could try and seize Taiwan by force, which would then lead to a wider conflict at a time we're already facing the repercussions of one war. The Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida also hopes to highlight the risks of nuclear proliferation during this particular meeting, given that it's happening in Hiroshima. Concerns about the strength of the global economy, rising prices, and the debt limit crisis in the United States as well is something that is going to weigh heavy on the minds of these leaders.
U.S. President Joe Biden boarded Air Force One outside Washington Wednesday for a flight to Japan. He is participating in the Group of Seven Leaders Summit, or G7 meetings there starting Friday. A French official told Reuters he would call this the Geopolitical Seven, as the focus is expected to be on two countries not invited, China and Russia. When it comes to China, members are grappling with how to warn against what they see as its threat to global supply chains and economic security, without alienating a key trading partner. President Biden had planned to address some of these issues on a visit to other countries in the hemisphere as well. This included a meeting in Australia with the Quad, an informal group of 4 countries that promotes an open Indo-Pacific, which Beijing sees as an attempt to push back against its growing influence in the region. That meeting is now taking place in Japan. Biden was asked about this before his departure.
What message does this send to Genji and Australia? I know that it was important to you to focus on Asia in this trip, but this is having to be put aside. Is this almost a win for China?
No, because we're still meeting, we still have 4 good allies.
I think we've shown recently that there is more senior level engagement with China.
The U.S. relationship with China highlighted a congressional hearing Tuesday, with several cabinet secretaries, including Secretary of State Antony Blinken, weighing in on its importance and its challenges.
What we believe would be the right course is to now see more senior level engagement in a sustained way across our administration and theirs, precisely so that we can make sure that at the very least we're talking to each other, that we are making very clear what we stand for, what our intent is, what we're looking for, as well as, where possible, finding areas of cooperation. It's not only what's in our interest, but the rest of the world looks to us to manage this relationship responsibly. We're determined to do that.
Though differences on China among G7 members were put in sharp focus after French President Emmanuel Macron visited Beijing last month and called for the European Union to reduce its dependence on the United States. On Russia, the leaders are expected to tighten sanctions. The focus is on energy and exports aiding Moscow's war against Ukraine. Officials with direct knowledge of the talks have told Reuters. While there are differences in strategy on how to end the conflict, the United States doesn't want to talk about a diplomatic path forward until it sees how the spring military offensive plays out, officials have said, even as its European allies want it to have a diplomatic solution in hand. The G7 talks wrap up Sunday.
The G7 summit is going to take place in Hiroshima, a victim of nuclear weapons. Listen in to the message this atomic bomb survivor had to give to one of several of those leaders that are gathering there.
I want the G7 leaders to seriously acknowledge the inhumanity of nuclear weapons. They are weapons that can destroy mankind. I want them to strongly feel that these are terrible things and that they have to be abolished.
It's the 49th G7 summit, and India has been invited by the host country as a special invitee. It's not the first time that India has gotten this invitation. This has been done by 2 or 3 other countries in the past as well. And India is going to be part of major discussions that take place over the weekend in that 2-day summit. India's ambassador to Japan has said that both India and Japan are really good allies. The meet will be incredibly helpful in strengthening the ties between the two countries.
Hiroshima is a city of peace. India is a country of peace. And, our position on Ukraine-Russia issue has been well articulated by our leadership in various occasions, including in the United Nations when we were the member of the UN Security Council, that India stands for peace. Our Prime Minister has made it clear that this is not an era of war. This is an era of peace. That continues to be our position, and we look forward to active participation in the G7 summit and also for other deliberations and discussions. We have an excellent relationship between the two countries. As you are aware, it is a special strategic and global partnership established during the visit of Prime Minister in 2014 with his counterpart, the then Prime Minister Abe. And now with the Prime Minister Kishida, this relationship is getting reinforced during the visit of Prime Minister Kishida to India in March, and also now again with the visit of our Prime Minister and the bilateral meetings scheduled for during the visit.